kept my head down at dinner. In the women's room, I could be brave because Marley was beside me, and she just thought I was nice. But here, sandwiched between people whose hate I could feel radiating off in waves, I was a coward. I looked up from my plate once to see Chris Ambers twirling her fork menacingly, and Ashley, who was so ladylike, had her lips pouted and didn't speak to me. I just wanted to escape to my room. I didn't understand why it was all so important. So the people seemed to like me, so what? They were outranked in here. Their little signs and cheers didn't matter. After everything was said and done, I didn't know whether to feel honored or annoyed. I focused my energies on the food. The last time I had steak was for Christmas a few years ago. I knew Mom did her best, but it was nothing like this. So juicy, so tender, so flavorful. I wanted to ask someone else if this wasn't the best steak they'd ever had. If Marley had been nearby, I would have. I took a tentative peek around the room. Marley was chattering quietly with the people around her. How did she manage to do that? Hadn't the same clip declared her one of the immediate favorites? How did she get people to talk to her? Dessert was an assortment of fruits and vanilla ice cream. It was like I've never eaten before. If this was food, then what had I been putting in my mouth up to this point? I thought of May and her equal love for all things sweet. She would have loved this. I bet she would have excelled here. We weren't allowed to leave dinner until everyone had finished, and after that we were under strict orders to go straight to bed. You'll be meeting Prince Maxon in the morning, and you'll want to look your best, Sylvia instructed. He is someone in this room's future husband, after all. A few girls sighed at the thought. The click and clack of shoes up the stairs was quieter this time around. I couldn't wait to get out of mine. Out of the dress, too. I had one set of clothes from home in my backpack and was debating putting them on just to feel like myself for a moment. We dispersed at the top of the stairs, each girl heading off to her own room. Marley pulled me aside. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, it's just that some of the girls were looking at me funny during dinner. I tried not to come across as whiny. They're just a little nervous because everyone liked you so much, she said, waving off their behavior. But the people liked you too. I saw the signs. Why weren't the girls being mean to you? You haven't spent a whole lot of time with groups of girls, have you? She was smiling slyly, like I should know what was happening. No, just my sisters mostly, I confessed. Homeschool? Yes. Well, I get tutored with a bunch of other fours back at home, all girls, and they each have their ways of getting under the other people's skin. See, it's all about knowing the person, figuring out what will bug them the most. Lots of girls give me backhanded compliments or little remarks, things like that. I know I come across as bubbly, but I'm shy underneath that, and they think they can wear me down with words. I scrunched my forehead. They did that on purpose? For you, someone kind of quiet and mysterious. I'm not mysterious, I interrupted. You are a little, and sometimes people don't know whether to interpret silence as confidence or fear. They're looking at you like you're a bug, so maybe they'll feel like you are the one. Huh? That kind of made sense. I wondered what I was doing, if I was picking away at the others' insecurities somehow. What do you do? When you want to get the best of them, I mean. She smiled. I ignore it. I know one girl at home who gets so irritated when she can't bother you. She just ends up sulking. So, don't worry, she said. All you have to do is not let them know that they're getting to you. They're not. I almost believe you, but not quite. She laughed a little, a warm sound that evaporated in the quiet hallway. Can you believe we meet him in the morning? She asked, moving on to more important things in her eyes. No, actually, I can't. Maxon seemed like a ghost haunting the palace, implied but never really there. Well, good luck tomorrow, and I could tell she meant it. Better luck to you, Marley. I'm sure Prince Maxon will be more than pleased to meet you. I squeezed her hand one time. She smiled in a way that was both excited and timid and walked off to her room. When I got to mine, Burial's door was still open, and I heard her muttering something to a maid. She caught sight of me and slammed the door in my face. Thanks for that. My maids were there, of course, waiting to help me wash and undress. My nightgown, a flimsy little green thing, had been laid out for me on the bed. Kindly, none of them had touched my bag. They were efficient but purposeful. They obviously had this end-of-the-day routine down, but they didn't rush through it. I suppose the effect was meant to be soothing. But I was ready to have them gone. I couldn't speed them up as they washed my hands and unlaced my dress and pinned my silver name tag to my silken nightgown. And as they did all these things that made me incredibly self-conscious, they asked questions. I tried to answer them without being rude. Yes, I'd finally seen all the other girls. No, they weren't very talkative. Yes, dinner was fantastic. No, I wouldn't meet the prince until tomorrow. Yes, I was very tired. And it would really help me wind down if I could have some time alone, I added, to the end of that last answer, hoping they would take the hint. They looked disappointed. I tried to recover. You're all very helpful. I'm just used to spending time alone, and I've been swarmed with people today. But Lady Singer, we're supposed to help you. It's our job, the head girl said. I figured out that she was Anne. Anne seemed to be on top of things. Mary was easygoing, and Lucy, I guessed, was just shy. I really do appreciate you all, and I'll definitely want your help getting started tomorrow. But tonight, I just need to unwind. If you want to be helpful, some time to myself would be good for me. And if you're all rested, I'm sure it would make things better in the morning, right? They looked at one another. Well, I suppose so, Anne acquiesced. One of us is supposed to stay here while you sleep, in case you need something. Lucy looked nervous, like she was afraid of whatever decision I would make. She seemed to have little tremors now and then, which I guessed was her shyness coming to the surface. If I need anything, I'll ring the bell. It'll be fine. Besides, I won't be able to rest knowing someone's watching me. They looked at one another again, still a little skeptical. I knew one way to stop this, but I hated using it. You're supposed to obey my every command, right? They nodded hopefully. Then I command you all to go to bed and come help me in the morning, please. Anne smiled. I could tell she was starting to get me. Yes, Lady Singer, we'll see you in the morning. They curtsied and quietly left the room. Anne gave me one last look. I supposed I wasn't quite what she had been expecting. She didn't seem too upset about it, though. Once they were gone, I stepped out of my fancy slippers and stretched my toes on the floor. It felt good, natural, to be barefoot. I went to unpack my things, which was quick. I kept my change of clothes tucked in the bag and stored it in my massive closet. I surveyed the dresses as I did so. There were only a few, enough to get me through a week or so. I assumed this was the same for everyone. Why make a dozen dresses for a girl who might leave the next day? I took the few photos I had of my family and stuck them in the edge of my mirror. It stretched so high and wide I could look at the pictures without having anything interrupt my view of myself. I had a small box of personal trinkets, earrings and ribbons and headbands I loved. They'd probably looked incredibly plain here, but they were all so personal that I'd have to have them with me. The few books I brought found their way to the helpful shelf near the doors that opened to my balcony. I peeked out the entry to the balcony and saw the garden. There was a maze of paths with fountains and benches. Flowers blossomed everywhere, and each hedge was perfectly trimmed. Past this obviously manicured piece of land was a short, open field, and then there was a massive forest. It stretched back so far that I couldn't tell if it was entirely closed in by palace walls. I wondered for a moment why it existed, and then debated the last article from home that I held in my hand. My tiny jar with its rattling penny. I rolled it in my hands a few times, listening to the penny skate around the edges of the glass. Why had I even brought this? To remind myself of something I couldn't have? That tiny thought, that this love I had been building in a quiet, secret place for years, was really beyond my reach now, made my eyes well up. On top of all the tension and excitement of the day, it was just too much. I didn't know where the jar's permanent place here would be, but for the moment I set it on the table by my bed. I dimmed the lights, crawled up on top of the luxurious blankets, and stared at my jar. I let myself be sad. I let myself think of him. How had I lost so much in such a short period of time? It would have seemed like leaving your family, living in some foreign place, and being separated from the person you love should be events that take years to roll into place, not just a day. I wondered what exactly he had wanted to tell me before I left. The only thing I could deduce was that he didn't feel comfortable saying it out loud. Was it about her? I stared at the jar. Maybe he was trying to say he was sorry? I had given him a sound scolding last night, so perhaps that was it. That he'd moved on? Well, I could see that pretty clearly myself, thank you very much. That he hadn't moved on? That he still loved me? I shut the thought down. I couldn't let that hope build in me. I needed to hate him right now. That anger would keep me going. Staying as far away from him as I could for as long as possible was half my reason for being here. But the hope ached, and with the hope came homesickness, wishing May was sneaking into my bed like she sometimes did, and then the fear that the other girls wanted me gone, that they might keep trying to make me feel small, and then nervousness at being presented to the nation on television for as long as I was here, and terror that people might try to kill me just to make a political statement. It all came at me too fast for my dizzy head to compute after such a long day. My vision got blurry. I didn't even register that I'd started crying. I couldn't breathe. I was shaking. I jumped up and ran to the balcony. I was so panicked it took me a moment to open the latch, but I did. I thought the fresh air would be enough, but it wasn't. My breaths were still shallow and cold. There was no freedom in this. The bars of my balcony caged me in, and I could still see the walls around the palace, high with guards atop the points. I needed to be outside the palace, and no one was going to let that happen. Desperation made me feel even weaker. I looked at the forest. I'd bet I could see anything but the greenery from there. I turned and bolted. I was a little unsteady with the tears in my eyes, but I managed to get out the door. I ran down the one hallway I knew, not seeing the art, or the drapery, or golden trim. I barely noticed the guards. I didn't know my way around the palace, but I knew if I got down the stairs and turned the right way, I'd see the massive glass doors that led to the garden. I just needed the doors. I ran down this grand stairwell, my bare feet making slapping sounds on the marble. There were a few more guards along the way, but no one stopped me. That is, until I actually found the place I was looking for. Just like earlier, 2 men were stationed at either side of the doors, and when I tried to run for them, one of them stepped in my way, the spear-like staff in his hand, barring me from the exit. "Excuse me, miss, you need to go back to your room," he said with authority. Even though he wasn't speaking loudly, his voice seemed thunderous in the still of the elegant hallway. No, I mean, outside." The words were tangled. I couldn't breathe. "Miss, you need to get back to your room now." The second guard was taking steps toward me. "Please," I started gasping. I thought I might faint. "I'm sorry. Lady America, is it?" He found my pin. "You need to go back to your room." I can't breathe," I stammered, falling into the guard's arms as he moved close enough to push me away. His staff fell to the ground. I feebly clawed at him, feeling woozy with the effort. "Let her go." This was a new voice, young but full of authority. My head half turned, half fell in its direction. There was Prince Maxon. He looked a little odd, thanks to the angle my head was hanging at, but I recognized the hair and the stiff way he stood. "She collapsed, Your Majesty. She wanted to go outside." The first guard looked at me looked nervous as he explained. He would be in danger if he damaged me. I was the property of Ilya now. "Open the doors." "But, Your Majesty," "Open the doors and let her go now." "Right away, Your Highness." The first guard went to work, pulling out a key.